Insanity. Absolute insanity. In Buffalo, New York this evening as the Avalanche go down 4-0 to start this hockey game. They remove Alexander Georgiev from the game after surrendering 4 goals on just 8 shots, north of a 21 goals against average for the game alone, just a .500 save percentage. It felt like the first of this 5-game road trip was all for naught as we welcome you to Between the Pipes presented by Safeway here on Altitude Sports Radio social media accounts, on X, on Twitch, and on YouTube. Join in the comments, your questions, your exclamations, because this thing was... Well, if you didn't think it could get any more wild than the Browns and the Broncos last night, spring, you just had to watch a little bit of hockey tonight and not rage quit after the first 20 minutes. I wanted to, but I was hosting the game on AM 950, so I had no choice but to just sit there and deal with the suck that was the first period. They put in Scott Wedgwood, and lo and behold, the Avalanche remove the problem and then become a good team again.
Yeah, well, they rage quit on Alexander Georgiev. Oh man, Alexander Georgiev. We'll talk about that, but look, how many multi-goal comebacks did they have last year? They had quite a few. I know that was a theme of last season, all the multi-goal comebacks that they had. And here's a 4-goal comeback. This was the first time in Buffalo Sabres franchise history that they have blown a 4-goal lead at home. Look, if any team can do this, it's Colorado. They are filled with firepower, and they weren't skating well in the first period. It wasn't just Alexander Georgiev. They did one of those slow start things. They forgot that the game started.
Dead start. Dead upon arrival.
You know, they get on a plane. They lose at home to Edmonton. They get on a plane. I guess they were still on the plane mentally. I don't know. Was it really good first-class service, and they enjoyed it so much they just wanted to be back there? Yeah, they forgot the game started at 5 Mountain, 7 Eastern. But when they turned it on, like when that team turns it on, and then they start coming at you, they're dangerous, and they're much better than Buffalo. And if any team profiles as such that can do this, it's Colorado. And Nathan MacKinnon, we talked about the snake-bitten goal scoring from Nathan MacKinnon this year. Only 7 goals coming into tonight. And Raj, you mentioned the epically low shooting percentage that he'd had this year. Well, he gets 2 goals. I mean, he gets the first one. It's a great snipe after, good job by, they're fighting. They're forechecking now. They're forcing the issue. They're working to keep pucks in the zone. Lehkonen does just that. That puck that Lehkonen keeps in the zone goes straight to MacKinnon. He beats Jukka-Pekka Luukkonen glove side. Great snipe from Nate. And then, his other goal, he's getting in front of net and he's tipping a puck. I think Mikko reads that Nate is sliding into that area and quickly recognizes to just fire that thing on net. Nate's not much of a tipper, but they need him to be. And he doesn't net front fight too often, but he did there, and he gets a 2-goal night. And then it's the Kiviranta, Ivan, Logan O'Connor line. They're killing a power play, getting a goal directly after that, scoring in a 5-on-5 scenario. It's a hardworking third line. They just upped the effort level, and they got competent goaltending. Scott Wedgwood is a competent veteran goaltender, and it's weird to see that. He's not a world beater, but it's weird to see just competent goaltending. What from a veteran? What a novel concept. And that's how the Avs are able to come back and win this game.
And that was the reason why they made this trade for Wedgwood. It wasn't because they wanted him to be the number one here. It was because, well, if the issues continue to arise with our starts, we need to be able to find a way to get a point out of some of these games rather than just kicking it down the can or kicking the can down the road and just saying that we'd be okay with getting, the next 2 games. You need to find a way if you want to separate yourself from 500 to get a point. And in this case, somehow figure out a way to get 2 points. That's the reason why he's here, is a staying calm presence. He has shown that over the course of 2 or 3 weeks, he can get really hot. He was a really good backup for Dallas behind Jake Ottinger. He's been everywhere in this league. It was a good pickup. The Avalanche very clearly telling their organization and their fan base that Justus Annunen, not the goaltender of the future, that Ilya Nabokov is probably the guy that's here in the organization, or at least in the pipeline, that's going to be your netminder moving forward. I still believe that this front office is about to make another trade for a starting goalie, and we do have to start there. We have to start there with tonight's game. They jumped back. The LOC line, Kivi Ronto was phenomenal. Ivan continues to do the right things, and that's what sparks this 5-goal comeback to get 2 points. But where we start tonight, Spring, is the starting goaltending situation, because unless it gets resolved, you're going to continue to see games like this. I think we are far past the issue of, well, it's just the start of Alexander Georgiev's season. No, I think it'd be short-sighted to say that. This is who Alexander Georgiev is right now. He's just not a good goaltender. And it would be a travesty if this organization continued to move forward with how good of a lineup they have, regardless of injuries, how good of a lineup they have, if they don't make a trade to shore up number one net minding. And I'm still here. I think you need to go trade for John Gibson. Whatever it takes to go get him, make Anaheim eat 50% of that contract. If that means you have to give up another first-round pick next year, be my freaking guest. And I don't even think it's because John Gibson is, Vezina-level Gibson like he was 5 or 6 years ago, Spring. I think this is the same thing as Jerry Jeudy. You just got to get that blood out of the locker room, man. It doesn't work for this team.
No, we've seen some apparent tension, some evidence of some of that between Georgiev and the skaters in front of him. Georgiev, there's been a moment or two where, whether it's breaking a stick because he's frustrated after allowing a goal. I remember a moment where him and Mikko Rantanen kind of get into it in a moment like that. Nathan MacKinnon has talked this season. And maybe, it's reading too much into a comment or two of his, but how, he'll say something like, man, it feels like everything's going in. It feels like we can't get a stop. Make of that what you will. Yeah, the Alexander Georgiev era, it's just sometimes when it gets into the toilet, it's tough to unflush it a little bit. How's that for a top of the head analogy for you? Because the first year of the tenure was pretty good. It was pretty good, but since the back half of last season and now it's extended to early December of this season, I don't know if there's a way back up. But sometimes the change of scenery is the only thing. I don't think he can start in the near future again for the Avs. I think right now Scott Wedgwood is your one. Should they have been a little more patient and held on to Annunen as ammo to send to Anaheim for Georgiev?
I mean, it didn't even seem like I don't even think that's the case.
Or for Gibson, Gibson.
Right, but what the trade with Nashville is telling you, look at the market, right? They moved Annunen and had to add a 6th rounder. So that's telling you what the market was for Justus Annunen around the league. He's not a trade chip. He wasn't a trade chip.
Well, but what value does Georgiev have right now?
He'd be their backup. Lucas Dostal is their number one. He would be their backup, and he's an unrestricted free agent at the end of the season for a team that needs to bring in salary, right? The way that Anaheim recoups more on trades now is not by getting younger players that might be the future. They already have the future in goal. The way that they get better is by taking in bad contracts and bad players in exchange for either top prospects or, more likely for the Avalanche, future draft picks. That's the way that they do it. So it's not an issue for Anaheim.
Yeah, so Georgiev and his $3 million could help salaries match. But Anaheim, they're going to want, a good prospect, a good draft pick.
I think a conditional first next year would do it. A 2nd rounder with a condition that if you win the cup in the next 2 years, when Gibson is on the roster, or if you win the West in the next 2 years when Gibson is on the roster and he plays, let's call it 50% of the games, just like the Darcy Kemper trade clause went, I think that could do it. It becomes a first rounder if both of those conditions are made.
Is there a world, just I'll throw it out there for the sake of discussion, where Scott Wedgwood is the guy the rest of the way? I mean, maybe.
At this point, man, yeah, give it to me.
I mean, I'll take it over Georgiev. That's where we're at. And look, Scott Wedgwood, I'll even say very good backup. Maybe for a season you could ride something, but yeah, it does. Gibson would certainly give me more peace of mind with Wedgwood as the true backup. That's a little Stanley Cup contendery to me. Like that's shoring some things up. If you had Gibson and Wedgwood as your backup, that would be wild. I mean, that would be wild from where we were just a few months ago, to the back end of last season to now, for the goaltender room to have been completely remade like that. And maybe that was always a possibility in the back of the front office's mind for the Avalanche. But that would be wild that in a cup window to completely remake not only your starter, but your backup situation in the first portion of this season. That would be crazy, but that might be where they're at. The Georgiev experiment, it seems to have come to an end here. I don't see a path back. I don't.
I don't work because I don't think, just like C3 Bridges here says on YouTube, can he be worse? I don't know. Every time that I think Georgie can get worse, he somehow does get worse. And then he makes me forget about it because there's a couple of games that are good enough in there. But there's always that, like, yeah, there's 3 goals against or 4 goals against, even though he plays well enough to give you a chance to win. At some point, you need to get a goalie that is good enough for you to win when you're not good enough to win. And right now, Alexander Georgiev is not that player. And I would hope that the front office is doing everything they can to go and get another netminder. If you look at the guys around the league that would be available, there's not really that many. Logan Thompson could have been one, but Washington looks like they're going to be a playoff team this year. I don't know. Would you look at, you would think going into this season that like Philip Gustafsson or Jesper Wallstedt of Minnesota would have been one of those guys, but Minnesota is in the running to be the best team in the league right now. There's not many starters, bona fide starters that you can go out and get for teams that are not in the hunt. I could always bring up this idea, Spring, and I did it at the beginning of the year. Jordan Binnington could be one of those guys too.
No, he could be. He could be. It's similar to the Gibson situation with a few years left on the deal. You would need retention of salary. I brought up Peter Mrazek with the Blackhawks. You got your Sharks goalies, Blackwood and Vanacek. Hey, those San Jose Sharks, the red hot San Jose Sharks.
Another overtime win tonight, Spring.
In DC against the team that had been very hot themselves in the Capitals. Go get one of those Sharks goalies. I think another move needs to be made. I do. What an odd season. This could just be the season of trading for goalies. And those are the moves. Just moving pieces for goalies. Like, let's look at like the 4 goals that Alexander Georgiev allows in the first period. 2 of them, the 2 backhanded shots, the second goal of the game from Tage Thompson, which was his second. He scored the first 2. So the second Tage Thompson goal, and then the Beck Malenstein goal, which was assisted by Nicholas Aube-Kubel. Shout out to him. Both of those backhand shots go 5-hole through Georgiev. It's terrible. It's absolutely terrible. You're going to allow both of those, and I know the Avs weren't skating well in front of him. I know that on the Beck Malenstein goal, there's a bad turnover in the neutral zone. And I get that, but you gotta save at least one of those, and that's what Scott Wedgwood did. He just made saves that are makeable, and Georgiev's not doing that. You've talked about it all season, Raj. Just make a save, just bail the Avs out, and just time and time again, he's not doing it. Those 2 goals that he allows in the first period to get beat on basic backhands 5-hole. There's no deke. There's no man in front of him. It's awful. It's absolutely awful.
I agree with your take that two of them you can put on the defense in front of him, and two of them are certainly on Georgiev. Pants Party on Twitch says the same exact thing. The defense was not good enough in front of him, but for me, what the other thing that I've said throughout this year to start has been it's the type of goal that you let in at the time, right? The Tage Thompson first goal, you can bounce back from that. It was one that probably shouldn't have gone in anyways, could have been goaltender interference. Puck was probably going wide, but then you give up that goal was awful. And I took a screenshot of when Thompson started his shooting motion on the backhand from the dot line, a backhand on the ice from the dot line. This isn't a 104 mile an hour one-timer from Tage Thompson, which he can unleash at any given time. This was a backhander from the dot line, which is almost 10 to 15 feet away from your goal line. I took a screenshot from behind Georgiev. The amount of net that is wide open, man, is unbelievable. It's the type of goal at the time that you let it in that can deflate a team. And I think that's why you saw them go up 4-0 is because the team just went, well, it's another one of those goddamn nights again. We don't even have to play anymore, right? So Bednar pulls him after the fourth, sparks the team. They get to within 3 after 2, knowing that Buffalo is a team that gives up a whole bunch of goals at bad times. For me, it's a team that doesn't play well in front of him. It's a team that thinks that they're never going to get a save, even when they don't expect it. And that's a losing scenario. And the front office has to do something to give this team, this talented roster, that coach, enough confidence in their goaltender to win a cup this year. If you keep Georgiev here, guys, the Avs will be a first or a second round bounce at best. If you trade him for anyone, I think it signals to the team, wasn't him, or it was him and it wasn't you guys.
Well, it's a situation now where, I think it's Wedgwood's job. I fully expect Scott Wedgwood to get the start in the Avs next game, and barring a terrible performance. You know what? Actually, scratch that. Even if he has a terrible performance, I can't go back to Georgiev. I can't. So, I mean, it's just Wedgwood's job right now. It is now. Do I think he can sustain, being a 1 for the rest of the season on a team that has cup aspirations? I don't know. I mean, comment in the chat says, do you think Wedgwood is any less a goalie than Darcy Kemper is? Look, there's a lot of average goaltending in the league. Worst comes to worst. Wedgwood, like I said, very good backup. I'll put him akin to something like a Pavel Francouz. If that's what they ride with, fine. But I think over the long run, let's say Wedgwood gets hurt. Let's say Wedgwood is the goaltender for the rest of the year, which I think they'll acquire another one. But let's just say, and he gets hurt in the playoffs, and in comes Alexander Georgiev. No, I'll turn my TV off in the playoffs if that is the situation. We can't have it. So another goaltender needs to come in here. Preferably one above the level of Wedgwood. But Georgiev can't even be the backup on this team anymore. Even the backup. It's time. It's time to move on.
And Tyler here on Twitter says, y'all and everyone else on Twitter were saying it was Onninen's job after the first 2 games of the year. Sure, you can say that it was Onninen's job after the first two games of the year. I think what the moral of the story there, if you read between the lines, is it's not Georgiev's job.
Yes, that's the key.
That's the key.
Look, I liked Oninen. I see potential in him. I like his movement. I like his size. But it was more so him versus Georgiev. It was it was him versus, a better goaltender.
Yeah, him versus Gibson. Him versus Gibson.
Yeah, I wouldn't have been saying Oninen should have been the guy. But when it was him versus Georgiev, yeah, I wanted to see Oninen. The other night, the game after they trade Oninen, Georgiev and Eustace had the exact same save percentage on the season, 87.2%. they're the same guy, but one of them has far more experience in the league, but is in a bad way. The other at least had some upside and is growing and learning. But I guess the Avs, they didn't have time for that. They're in a win now window. Wedgwood is more of that goalie. Yeah, you bring in a John Gibson, I would not be sitting here saying Onanen should start over him. No chance in hell.
Hell no. Whoever brought up the idea of like, could Scott Wedgwood be Darcy Kemper? The numbers don't say so. Kemper's a way better goaltender than Wedgwood ever has been in his career. I'm not saying that Wedgie doesn't have the ability to be really good. When you look at his 26 game sample size in 21-22 with a bad Arizona team, he threw up a 911 save percentage with a bad Coyotes team. He has never posted outside of his 2 years with Dallas better than a 3.00 goals against average in a season, and most of these are him being a backup or a 1B. But the 2 years in Dallas, last year and the year before, where he plays in 53 games and starts 46 of them, he throws up a 915 save percentage and a 272 goals against average in 22-23. Last year with Dallas backing up Ottinger, he throws up a 900 save percentage in a 285. Those are Kemper-esque numbers. Over the course of their careers, however, Kemper has wildly better just counting statistics than Wedgie does. But the numbers say, yeah, he could be I think you said earlier on the show, could he be a Pavel Francouz? Sure.
Yeah, and you saw Pavel step up in the playoffs. I think Wedgwood is a very good NHL backup. How about this comment? Does this win cool down Jared Bednar's hot seat?
I never thought it was hot.
I mean, we talked about this the other night. Well, I was doing the blitz, when the Avs were down 4-0, and we got a text that was along the lines of fire Bednar. And
we've gotten those for 6 straight years.
And they come back and they win 5-4. Yeah, Jared Bednar is a very good coach, and it was an easy move. It was a dumb move to pull Georgiev after the 4th goal, but Jared Bednar has his fingers on the pulse of this team, and he's one of the better coaches in the league. He knows what he has in front of him. He has a team in front of him that is capable of being down 4-0 on the road against a good Buffalo team. One of the, a solid mid-level team, young up-and-coming team. You're down 4. I mean, 4-goal deficit is a 4-goal deficit. You come back and win. Never said. I don't want to hear that. The Avs, they're like a college program, really. They're a program. And Jared Bednar is one of the faces of this program. It is an organization with levels that are in place and that is in sync with each other. And Jared Bednar is the face of that. He is a great leader. That is a big part as to why they were able to overcome a 4-goal deficit tonight, was the steadiness of Jared Bednar.
Yeah, I don't think the organization would want to move on from him. They love the coach. I think they view him as a guy like Montgomery that would get scooped up within a week. Like there would be a coaching vacancy created for Jared Bednar, just showing how he turned around this team after the 48-point season, he got fed a shit sandwich when he came to the organization in 2017, 2018. Was it just a couple of weeks into training camp, or a couple of weeks prior to training camp, rather, when Patrick Waugh said, "Hey, I'm going to go back out to the Quebec Major Junior League and hang out with the Remparts before going to the Islanders." He turned that thing around in a year and had an 8 seed beat a 1 seed in the playoffs, and then had a Stanley Cup championship come 3 seasons after that. I don't think he's going anywhere. The question from Daniel Miller on YouTube, hey, Raj, whose seat is hotter between Bednar's and Malone's? I think both are relatively cool right now because of how recent they've won championships and how good they have been. I would say Malone's is hotter than Bednar's. I don't think either one are scorching at all.
I think that both teams, both sets of players have a large amount of respect for their 2 respective head coaches. Nikola Jokic loves Michael Malone. I think, remember when Jared Bednar first got hired and him and Nathan McKinnon, this was more McKinnon, got into it on the bench. I believe this game was in Calgary. Like, McKinnon is chewing out Jared Bednar. McKinnon, especially younger Nathan McKinnon, was a little bit of a hothead.
You remember the term? He turned around and he said, "Do your fucking job," is what he said. That's verbatim.
I did not remember that. That's even better. Yeah. Early on. So there you go. Nate didn't have respect for Jared Bednar. It's like, who's this guy coming over from the AHL? And Nathan McKinnon is stubborn. It certainly was more so. He doesn't, oh, who's this guy telling me to do this and that way? Nathan McKinnon has come to greatly respect Jared Bednar. So if they were to fire Jared Bednar, what type of coach would you, the listener, the viewer of this show, what type of coach would you want them to bring in? The type of coach who is going to be more no nonsense, sterner, yell at them more. How do you think Nathan McKinnon is going to respond to that? I don't think he would respond well. I think that they know what they have. They know what they're capable of, and they know that it's simply an effort thing, and they didn't have the effort in the first period, and they rallied as a group in the first intermission, and they adjusted that. Jared Bednar is a part of that. Nathan McKinnon is a part of that. It's already there. Jared Bednar knows how to deal with Nathan McKinnon. I worry how another head coach would come in and adjust to Nate's personality mid-season. I don't think that would go well. I think it would be very difficult to win Nathan McKinnon over.
I agree. I think it is much easier to spark the team via trade, whether it's for a starting goaltender, which again, I'm going to die on the John Gibson hill. That's the hill that I have planted my flag on. This can be my DMAC drafting a quarterback hill. This is what I will die on. I can write a manifesto on it if you guys want to. I think it's easier to spark the team by making a trade, either for a goalie or for a big time player at that point. Still remains to be seen what's going to happen with Gabriel Landeskog if he can come back. If he decides that he can't play anymore, then the $7 million is opened up to utilize to possibly go out and get a player not only as a rental, but for the next couple of years as well. Yeah, there's a lot of well-traveled veteran coaches that are out there that you could possibly look at. Would it be Gerard Gallant or Dallas Eakins, Brucey Boudreau, Claude Julien, Mike Yeo, guys like that? Would you consider looking at a guy like Joel Quenneville with his spotted and checkered past, who also has a stop here in Denver that was relatively successful with the Avalanche? Those would be the type of guys that I think you would look for. It's not like you would look for a younger coach like a David Carl from DU. I don't think would be the fit for this team. That's the reason why the organization's not moving on from him. They love him. He's not the issue right now. The issue are the starts, and you saw it tonight. It's a microcosm of the problems. You remove the issue from the team, and then the Avalanche become dominant again. They removed the cancer from tonight's game. That was Alexander Georgiev's ability to stop a puck, and then the team stormed back and win a game. I know it's the Sabres, but it's very clear to see what the problem is and why they're starting off so badly. They don't play well in front of that guy.
Let me just back to Bednar real quick. I'm going to give you my favorite coaches in the NHL. The upper tier, from my perspective, coaches in the NHL that I'm like, you know what? That's a good coach. That's a good coach. Okay. Here's my guys who I like. I like Jared Bednar. I'll start with him. I like Paul Maurice with the Florida Panthers.
Oh, I love Paul Maurice. What a coach.
I think him and Bednar are two of the best coaches in the league. I like John Cooper with the Lightning. Believe it or not. Is he a little weird? Maybe. I like that guy. I think he's a good coach. Rod Brindamore with the Hurricanes.
That's a good one.
I like him. Look at what Jim Montgomery's doing with the Blues. I wonder if the Bruins are going to rue that. I like him. I kind of like Knobloch with the Oilers. I like Rick Talk. I don't
know enough about Knobloch.
I think he's I'll put him at the end of this list I'm giving, but I don't hate him. I kind of like him. Tocchet with the Canucks, Bruce Cassidy with the Knights. That's it. That's my list. It is hard to find a coach that I think has a presence that is worthy of, leading a very good team. And I think Jared Bednar is absolutely in that conversation.
Without a doubt. Again, I firmly believe that if they were to move on from him, he would be hired within a week, and a team would create a coaching vacancy for him. All right, Spring, before we go into tonight's NHL scoreboard, any last thoughts on tonight's game and the comeback? And it was a stunning comeback to watch them turn around and get that early goal. And the way that they scored those two goals, the Kiviranta goal and the Logan O'Connor goal, you go to an ugly area to get within two goals with Kiviranta's rebound. You just go to a gross area of the ice right in front of the paint, bury one into the back, and then Sam Girard, a delightful move on the blue line to get away from JJ Peterka. And then who's there for a rebound within the house? It's Logan O'Connor. Fires it home with authority to get within one. You get a tip goal. It's not the way that they got back into this game, man. It wasn't finesse. They just got down to the nitty gritty, got to the middle of the ice. And I think that's something that they can learn from.
Well, I mean, the second and third periods, it's maybe the best they've skated all season, certainly up there with the moments where they've had that energy, they've had that want to, getting in front of net, forcing the issue, being the team that is dictating the pace of play. And it's even more impressive to do it on the road. It's been about 10 days since they've skated like that. That was in Florida. It was a very good team. And when they beat the Panthers 7-4, so I mean, much like you go and you beat the defending champs 7-4, they obviously have it in them, and they brought it back out of themselves tonight in the second and third period. So when that team skates like that, and we've seen teams, Washington, LA, Philly, a little bit, try to slow the game down, muck it up, and the Avs haven't been able to dictate their pace against those teams, but we know that they absolutely can. I'm not sure why. Maybe it's, here we are in early December, coming off of a couple losses. Maybe there was just a sense of, no, putting our foot down. We're going to freaking go for it right here. We're going to go pedal to the metal. We're going to go 100%. When they do that, they can win a cup. They skate like that, and they get just competent goaltending. They can win a cup.
Currently underway right now, the Nuggets trail by 12 points at home. They've been outscored in the second quarter, which has 4 minutes remaining, and at 23-9 in the second quarter. Nikola Jokic has 7 points, 2 assists, and 2 rebounds, and pacing the way for Golden State. 3 of 7 from 3. Stephen Curry with 15 points there. Kuminga's got 13 for the Warriors. That's on Altitude Sports Radio 92.5 right now. Spring, 10 games, including the Avs on the docket tonight for the NHL. Let's go through these scores before we get out of here. Avs with the 5-4 comeback winners. A bunch of games went to overtime today. 2-1 is the final for Montreal at home. Big win. Nick Suzuki, reportedly left off Team Canada's Four Nations Cup team, gets the winner at home for Montreal.
Let's be honest. You kind of want to be. I wouldn't mind being left off those teams.
Yeah, I don't want to play for those 2 weeks.
Should Devon Toews be playing for Team Canada? I'll use him as the prime example, a guy who's banged up. Who had a really good back check in this game. Devon Toews had a really good back check on a breakaway towards Wedgwood. I feel like Devon Toews, while I'd love to see him play, he deserves an honor like this. He's been overlooked in that country, in Canada, in terms of, a defensive player for that group. I'd love to see him get that reward, but at the same time, he's banged up. I'd like him to get 2 weeks off.
Canucks get a 3-2 win in overtime over the Wild tonight. overtime winner going to, the Wild get the overtime winner over the Canucks, and who else other than Kirill Kaprizov, who ends it in overtime for Minnesota. They get their 17th win of the year. The Kraken double up Carolina 4-2 tonight, and the Sharks, as we mentioned earlier, a 2-1 victory on the power play in overtime. The Sharks stormed back in this one. They were getting like tripled in shots. They end up outshooting Washington 31-28, a big third period for San Jose.
See, the Sharks end a 4-game winning streak for Washington, and the Sharks themselves have now won 3 in a row and 4 out of their last 5. Let's go. Let's go, San Jose.
Other scores from around the league this evening. The Pittsburgh Penguins get a 5-4 victory in overtime over the Florida Panthers. They got outshot 41-16. Spencer Knight lets in 5 on 16.
Yeah, the Penguins were up 4-1, and then bam, 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 4-4, 3 unanswered in the third period for Florida. They come within like 6 minutes of each other, and I'm looking at the live scores, and I'm thinking, is Florida going to go Colorado, or 2 of the better teams in the league going to do the same thing on the road in the same night? No, Florida could not get it done, but they do pick up a point.
Another overtime victory for the Bruins. They go 3-2 over the Red Wings at home. The Golden Knights have a 1-0 lead after 1 period against the Oilers. Ivan Barbashev, 13 goals for Ivan Barbashev this year, coming unassisted halfway through that first period. And then in a really emotional night, if you guys haven't seen this yet, I would hop on Twitter and see what Calgary has put out on their social media accounts, because the Goudreau family was in the building this evening for the 2 teams that Johnny played for prior to his untimely passing after being hit by a drunk driver on his bikes with his brother ahead of their sister's wedding in New Jersey this offseason. That's a 1-0 lead for the Flames right now over the Jackets through 2 periods of play. It was really, really heart tugging, but it's something that I think was worth the watch if you guys can stomach it.
I think I saw that like every player for both teams came out with number 13 jerseys for warm-ups. Yeah, that's just what a sad twist on this NHL season. I mean, I love how the Flames and Jackets have responded to what happened, but I would rather they never had to respond in the first place. Both those teams are playing very well this season.
They are.
The Flames and the Jackets, better than you would have thought.
That'll do it for us tonight here on Between the Pipes, presented by our friends at Safeway. Reminder, celebrate the holidays with Safeway. They've got everything you need to create a holiday menu that your entire family is going to love. You can download the Safeway app to click deals, plan your meals, and shop for the season's best. Save time this holiday season with pickup or delivery at Safeway. Fresh foods and local flavors. For Mark Springer, I'm Alex Ryanemi. Avs win in stunning comeback fashion, 5-4. They get the first win of a 5-game road trip. And the next time that we will talk to you will be Thursday evening. You can hear that game on Altitude Sports Radio, AM 950, or worldwide on the Altitude Sports Radio app that's powered by the Will Hite Law Firm. We'll be on around 8 p.m., 8:30 at the very latest, right here on Twitch, on YouTube, and on Twitter. But for Mark, I'm Raj. Love you guys. Thank you so much for all of your time. Avs win. We'll talk to you guys on Thursday afternoon. Tune in tomorrow morning, 8 a.m. Jared Bednar will be on with Mosier, Lombardi, and Kane.